gentlemen, esteemed guests, and prospective students, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the information session for the College of Islamic Studies, where we will be introducing an exciting new program, the Master of Arts in Counseling Psychology. My name is Bayan Khalid, and I have the privilege of being your Master of Ceremony for this evening, or afternoon. The agenda for the session is as follows. We'll begin with a welcoming speech from Dr. Iskandar Shah, who is our Associate Dean of Academics at CIS. After that, we'll have Dr. Houmen Keshavarzi and Dr. Vedette Gormez, who will be presenting about the new program. Finally, we'll have a representative from the admissions team, Mr. Muhammad Salat, who will be sharing some of the requirements for applying to the program. So please note that we have some refreshments outside, as I said, so if you'd like to enjoy some after the session. Sorry, I did not show you the agenda. I said it, but here it is, in case you want to see it. Okay, and to begin, Dr. Iskandar will now provide us with an overview of the College of Islamic Studies programs.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, thank you so much for coming, for making your time to be here in our campus. I also would like to welcome our two professors, Dr. Houmen, who has been very instrumental from the beginning in terms of developing this program, and also Professor Wahdiyat as well, who are going to be part of the faculty in our college, inshallah. So probably you know, the college has been growing quite rapidly in the last 1 year, especially after the incoming dean, Dr. Rajab Santok. He was not able to be here because of some other commitments. He has to travel back to Turkey. But as you can see, last year we had 6 programs. This year we actually have added 4 new programs. The first one is PhD in Islamic Studies, which is the continuation of the 4 masters that we already have in our college. Masters of Islamic Architecture, Masters in Islamic Global Affairs, Masters in Islamic Studies, and also Masters in Applied Islamic Ethics. So the continuation of these 4 masters is actually leading to the PhD in Islamic Studies, which also going to start, inshallah, in fall 2023. On the top of it, we also have introduced 2 graduate certificates. One is the graduate certificate in Islamic Studies, and also graduate certificates in Islamic Finance. On the top of MSc in Islamic Finance and the PhD in Islamic Finance. And now the latest offering, which I hope, could be our final offering for this year, fall. We are expanding our portfolios, our menus. And we are so proud that we were able to launch this program this year. This has been quite a sprint. I wouldn't say it's a marathon, it's a sprint marathon. We mooted this idea quite a year back, but in terms of process, we started it quite fast. And alhamdulillah, with efforts from all parties, we managed to get approval from ministry just few weeks back. So alhamdulillah, and we got the green light to launch this program in fall 2023. So meaning that if you all decided to be part of this program, you will be the inaugural batch of MA in Counseling Psychology 2023. So that is something that you can actually be proud of as well. So as you can see, I'm not planning to speak long because the floor should be given to the expert, but I just would like to say this. The reason why psychology has become even more important today, not just because of the increasing mental health issues, so on and so forth, but the evolutions of life and also the understanding the dynamics of society is actually being seen from mainly right now from the psychology perspective. Even you take finance, for example, in my area, behavioral finance is also becoming more and more dominant. So in other words, a lot of narrative and discussion is being looked at from behavioral angles. So that's why psychology is not just about mental, it's not just about therapy, but it's actually going beyond that. And some of you might wonder why exactly that we are actually putting under Islamic studies. It's always a question that we get. As you can see in terms of our offering portfolios, we actually want to cover all the important aspects in terms of nation building. And we think that psychology is also part of the importance of nation building, apart from architecture, politics, which is covered by Islam and Global Affairs, ethics, which is covered by AIE, and then we also have Islamic studies as an anchor for our college. So I think with this offering, inshallah, this is gonna, I wouldn't say complete, but increase the relevancy of this college and also make CIS even a better institutions in the future as well. And we are so lucky that the faculty that are going to join us, or probably some of them already part of the college now, are very prominent and eminent in their areas. They have extensive experience, not just academically, but also this is the beauty about psychology. You have to be good in both. You have to be good academically, and you also have to have that practical experience too. And this is the first program that we're going to have the academic track plus the clinics within the college as well. So in other words, and the program is intensive. I think Dr. Human will talk about it. When we start working on the proposal, we realize that the student have to spend at least 700 hours of clinical time, which means that once you go through this program, you'll be quite, I would say, semi-expert in this area, inshallah. And not only that, this is also a program that we engage extensively with our partners like Sidra, Hamad bin Khalifa, with Hamad Hospitals, and also with Well Cornell as well. So in other words, you are exposed to all this engagement. So without further ado, I really welcome you to our info sessions on behalf of Dr. Rajab, who is very instrumental in this launching of this program. I thank our professors and all of you, especially to Bayan, my colleagues Omar and the rest of the team, who actually will be working very hard for the success of this program. I also saw Dr. Gavin, so Dr. Gavin, colleague who also been involved in this program at the beginning as well. So thank you so much. I'll pass it back to Bayan. Over to you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much, Dr. Iskandar Shah, for your enlightening speech. Now I'll give the floor to Dr. Human and Dr. Vadet, Dr. Human will be the program coordinator for the master's program, and Dr. Vadet will also be part of our faculty, inshallah. So they're going to guide us through the program's details and highlights. So the floor is yours.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'm honored to be with you all for my second trip to Qatar. So Jazakumullah khair, Dr. Iskandar, we've been corresponding and discussing this program quite extensively for the past 8 months or so now, alhamdulillah. And I first came out here in October, and I was invited by Dr. Rajab, who is a mentor and teacher to me, who actually recruited me to Ibn Khaldun University and brought me to Istanbul. And then he invited me to come here just to give a presentation in October. And I never would have thought that we would be sitting here today with a program approval in the summertime, talking about who's teaching what, and having an information session about a brand new program back when I was, sort of talking to Dr. Rajab, and I came over for an initial sort of meeting. While I can say I didn't expect it, I also can't say I'm fully surprised. Not because of me, but because of Dr. Rajab. I think because Dr. Rajab, mashallah, I perhaps should have assumed that there was something up his sleeve about getting a program going, and obviously he knows that I'm very interested in expanding, the movement of Islamic psychology, and in particular, my passion is not necessarily about just the theoretical aspects of Islamic psychology, but its applied applications. So we have the ilm and the amal, right? So it's not just about learning about the human being for the sake of the human being, but it's about learning about the human being in order to do something with the human being, in order to make their condition better, in order to reconnect them back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then reconnect them back to their own health when they've fallen ill. And in our context, we're talking about mental health. So alhamdulillah, we're here today. Yeah. And now, mashallah, we've added this additional program to the, mashallah, the wonderful programs that are already present at HBKU. And I'll be joining you all, in addition to Dr. Wahdid Gormaz, who's actually also full-time faculty, or faculty and full professor at Ibn Khaldun University, who is the leading trainer in cognitive behavioral therapy with extensive experience. And so we're so lucky to have somebody in his position being brought here to Qatar to be able to train the next generation of mental health providers, inshallah, not only for Qatar, but for the world. And this program is really a visionary program that intends to be able to provide answers and solutions to the ongoing crisis and dilemma of mental health problems, but also to uproot sort of these philosophies that are often alien to our civilization, to our cultures, and to try to replace it with something that is rooted in our tradition, not only for us, but hopefully to all of mankind. Rahmatul lil alameen, the Prophet ﷺ was a mercy to all people, right? And so we can take what we have, what one of my teachers used to say, not only represent our tradition, but to represent our tradition. To represent our tradition in various different fields, in various different spaces. And here's an opportunity in mental health to do it here. Part of my motivation, and I'll talk about this, I'll tell you a personal story, and I'll tell you about this statement of the APA. When I was getting trained as a psychologist or even when I was doing my undergraduate studies, initially at the University of Toronto, and then I moved to Chicago to do my graduate studies in clinical psychology, I always felt a sense of disconnection, in the sense that on the one hand, I'm going to a lot of these dini halaqat and durus and whatnot on my own accord, and discovering this rich tradition of tazkiyatun nafs and tahdib al-nafs and akhlaq, the akhlaq of the nafs, tahdib al-akhlaq, for example, tasfiyat al-qalb, amrad al-qulub, all these rich conversations about the human being, his nature, how to cure it, how to understand sicknesses of the heart. And there's all this discussion about how to reform the human condition, how to change human behavior, how to change thinking, how to change emotions, how to change your behavior, right? And meanwhile, I'm going to my studies during the day, and I'm finding that, at the university, and finding that they're also talking about this, but in a very different way, and there seems to be a disconnect between this academic space and the stuff that I'm learning in more of these closed sort of, outside of these quote-unquote academic institutions of studying Islamic studies. And so I realized that a lot of the people that I'm learning about in university are individuals whom my parents could not pronounce their names, right, because they were foreign to them. The ideas often were rooted in histories and theories and personal stories that are also foreign to my story, right, as a person from this part of the world, meaning the Middle East, right? And so I thought that something needed to be done, and I never really thought that I'm going to be part of shaping this, but I just thought that I really want to figure this out for myself and see if I could try to provide services in a way that was more integrated. Fast forward, to many years later, and we have Dr. Susan McDaniel, who I was at the APA conference at this year, and the first time that a conference was conducted on Islamic psychology, a panel that the American Psychological Association was given on Islamic psychology in its over 100-year existence was our panel. So alhamdulillah, I was on a panel here at 2016, or the year after it. Some of the dates are kind of blurring for me, to be quite honest. And then And she mentioned this at her inaugurating speech. And she says the following, which is something that I think not only was I feeling, but I think you all are feeling, and this is part of the reason why you're here, is that she says these countries, referring to countries outside of Western countries, have some of the most advanced civilizations in human history, with philosophies that do not always fit with the tenets of Western psychology. All psychology is cross-cultural. It can be challenging to avoid projecting our own values and intentions in science and practice. The commitment is clear to develop a psychology that incorporates Western science and Eastern philosophies. However, not everything important is verifiable through the scientific method. This is a challenge because some of the assumptions of Western models do not fit the Eastern experience. This is an acknowledgement by the president of the APA that there is a huge human history and tradition and civilizational values and perspectives that are completely absent from psychology. And the APA thereafterwards has developed a commitment to be able to start to integrate Islamic psychology, Islam and psychology, Islam and spirituality into mainstream discourse. We just came out with a publication that went into the Spiritually Integrated Psychotherapies book, an APA book, that featured our model of traditional Islamically integrated psychotherapy, which is the model of care that I teach, that I was actually teaching in Turkey last week at an international training. And then what's interesting is the following year, the American Psychiatric Association, which is even more surprising, features a panel on Islamic psychology, in which I was also a part of that panel. And then 2021, there's also another panel on Islamic psychology. And then there's a call for papers on Islam and spirituality and clinical practice by the American Psychological Association. So there's ongoing sort of interest in understanding what Muslims have to say about psychology. And if you look at some of the positive psychology literature, for example, that's coming out by Martin Seligman, he draws heavily on the akhlaqi tradition, on the virtue tradition and classification of virtues, which has a very long-standing legacy in our tradition. And so what I'm saying here is that they have recognized the need to understand our tradition more than we have in some respects, right? And so it's time for us to claim, or rather reclaim our own traditions and our own narratives to be able to express psychology rooted in our tradition that is most representative of our beliefs and our theology and our histories and our psychologies. Now when we come to the need, you might say, well, this is great, Islamic psychology. Now we have this need. It's not just about expression of philosophical ideas. These philosophies then have tangible realities that are applied in hospitals, that are applied in mental health centers, that are applied in counseling centers, that are applied in schools, that are applied in public health policy. They affect so much of the facets of society across institutions and across people's lives that we may not realize. It's not just about a philosophy of the soul that we're talking about, a philosophy of the mind and the body, but it's about that philosophy that you come up with that ends up impacting how healthcare services are provided. And Muslim patients across the world, particularly in the Muslim world, as well as in the Western world, are among the least likely to seek out mental health services from the mainstream because of a number of barriers. And the data here seems to fit with much of the other parts of the world of the stigma for mental health services. And I have been a part of programming in the United States where we set up a series of clinics where we provided Islamically integrated mental health services. Within a few years, we've grown to 5 offices across North America with exceeding wait lists. So when people talk to me about the stigma of mental health, I say to them, what stigma, right? Because people are always contacting our institutions. And so maybe it's about us being able to do something different or offer services in a way that's more consistent with the populations we seek to serve, rather than attempting to sort of, what do you call it, quote unquote, educate them or model them into the way that we want them to think and behave. The mission now coming to this, now, like, there's no program in the world that offers a graduate degree. All these gaps I'm talking about, healthcare training, right, mental health care training, all of us, including myself, had to go to institutions that taught Western psychology models for the most part. Dr. Rudd did the same, right? We didn't get these opportunities. And we see this continuing gap that I've just been talking about. And here is where we're attempting to close that gap and make a revolutionary change in the field. This is the very first graduate degree in the entire world that I know of that is going to offer a mental health applied counseling psychology degree that's rooted in Islamic traditions. One may say, oh, there's some certificates, there's some theoretical, philosophical kind of programs. There's none that offers you an applied degree that bridges, as the mission states, the ability to be able to integrate both the Islamic tradition and as well as contemporary psychological practices in a way that is designed to serve the needs of the patient population that we intend to serve, which is, you know, Muslims all across the world, Muslims and beyond, right? The tradition is beyond just serving just Muslims, of course. So the unique features of this program is that it offers, and you know, what better place, honestly, to house it at the College of Islamic Studies. This is truly an interdisciplinary, an intersectional sort of field that is actually turning into its own discipline. It's a crossover or intersection or interdisciplinarity between Islamic studies as well as psychology that sort of brings all of this together for clinical practice. The other feature that it offers, which is quite cool, is that we've aligned it with international competency standards. We've looked and reviewed some of the most prestigious institutions, accrediting bodies in the Western world, and we have adopted a curriculum that provides just as much rigor, in fact, even more, right? Because than the currently existent sort of standards, which means that it's possible. I don't want to say guaranteed, because no program can guarantee this. It's always based upon regional sort of licensure requirements wherever you are in the world. But at least in Qatar, it will make you eligible for licensure, right, to be able to practice as a psychological counselor. And then it also will allow you potentially to be able to be licensed anywhere in the world, because the standards line up similarly. In fact, even more so than many of the most rigorous sort of standards across most parts of the world. And given the fact that the program is in English, right, predominantly, while we request, and I'm going to talk about the requirements, we want individuals, like ideal applicants are those who have foundations in Arabic, and we're even talking about putting some sort of like a preparatory program for the Arabic language for those who are sort of struggling with it. It's 55 credits. So what's the typical credits at CIS?
36.
36. So you're almost doing 2 master's degrees here, right, in one. And we have it across 2.5 years. And you have a couple of responsibilities here. Typically you have 3 courses, right, in a master's program here. You have 4 here. Typically you're off for the summer. You have 2 classes in the summer, okay? Typically you have 3 classes and you're done, right? But you have 3 classes and then 4 classes, full summer, and the second year you have 700 clinical hours that you have to satisfy, right? And either a capstone research project or a thesis on top of it. So it's a quite rigorous program. You will be busy, okay? But we're here to support you and supervise you. Don't be intimidated by it. These are the standards that much of the rest of the world in mental health training is going by. And mental health sort of training is quite rigorous. It is not simply just a theoretical program. We need to cover a various amount of competencies along the way. So you'll get supervised practice. The other thing, I think it was on the slide about the clinic, or is that coming? I think it's coming, right? I'll mention the clinic.
It was mentioned a few
Okay, so we just go back maybe, and I'll tell you about the clinic. The other, right, it's right here. So the other cool thing, I was actually just meeting with Ms. Hamda, who is the facilities manager right now, just before coming over here. We're actually going to build a clinic. This is not only, this is like a 2-in-1. We're not only building a program, we're actually building a health center. We're building a clinic, a mental health clinic that is going to serve as the teaching clinic, right, where students will be there, will be under the supervision of faculty, will make available clinical services to the entire Doha population, right, particularly Education City, inshallah, for individuals to be able to come in for marital therapy, for individual counseling, for family counseling, for potentially psychiatric services and treatment, medication management. We're providing group therapy. We're providing, so it's actually quite an intensive project that we're kicking off here. And we're going to be devoting a particular space where individuals will be working within that clinic. In addition to that, they may be doing some field work out with our partners within the community. You know, whether it's the schools or universities or the hospitals, etc. Well, they'll go off and do some hours in these places. Yeah. So program language I mentioned is that we want at least an intermediate in Arabic because they said it's intersectional. We want individuals to be able to access, right, Islamic traditions and Islamic literature as well. Of course, you would be supported and supervised by your faculty. We recognize that you may not have advanced sort of Islamic studies research capacity, but we're at CIS and you have people like Dr. Gavin, although I don't know if I should be offering you up because you may be already too busy with the PhD program. But, I'm sorry?
Always happy to.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, barakallahu feek. So, you know, we have this very supportive sort of space of individuals who I feel very comfortable with within the faculty at CIS, and I think we have such a nice sort of community to be able to help and serve you all. Here's a run through of the curriculum and the courses that I've mentioned to you. The thing that you'll notice is the following, which is unique, something that requires perhaps just a very short explanation. All of the courses, they don't just add the word Islamic before every course, okay? You just need to keep that in mind. Part of the reason for that is because this program is housed in CIS, okay? So the program's mission and explicit philosophy is an Islamically integrative one. We don't have to force Islamic before everything. We're in Qatar, it's a Muslim country, okay? And we're at CIS in the College of Islamic Studies. So we don't need to put the term Islamic before everything for it to be Islamic here. It's ingrained within the philosophy of the program. In fact, it's a mandate that every course be taught through this integrative sort of perspective. So looking at even things like research methods, and looking at research methods found in, say, you know, the notion of qat'i and dhanni, like that which is certain and definitive, or objective versus subjective knowledge, for example. How do you validate or corroborate reports, for example, our Islamic epistemology? They're all integrated within the research methods courses. All right, so this is going to be very unique for you to be able to have this sort of conversation between these two traditions that attempts to really provide you sufficient perspective to be able to engage within this field. And so you'll see a transcript. Now the nice thing about this is that you get a transcript. You'll print it out, it says counseling psychology on it, and then you get it and you get a transcript that looks like just a mental health, you know, transcript, which means you can take that anywhere and apply for your licensure, and people will recognize that this is a mental health degree, right? If you had sort of, you know, language that needed to be completely modified on your transcript and the title of these courses, it may produce potential barriers. This was a discussion debate we had within our group, and we said we really want to facilitate for our students maximal usage and opportunities for them once they finish the program, inshallah. And student experience will be, just similar as what it means to be at CIS, except for the fact that they're going to be doing clinical work and applied work and field work. So that's going to be sort of the unique features of this program, as well as the interdisciplinarity element of it. Low student to faculty ratio, mashallah. I was pleasantly, I don't want to say surprised, but just happy, right? that Dr. Rajab had, was able to squeeze out 5 full-time faculty for this program. That means that's going to allow us to be able to really carry a good load and be able to provide sufficient oversight to students, to be able to meet with you all, to be able to provide the sort of time that you might need to develop you in your sort of journey to become this mental health practitioner, Muslim mental health practitioner. Opportunities are just so many, right? I mean, clinical psychologists, counseling psychologists now are just everywhere. Right? You can be in government, in public policy, in health, in hospital settings, community settings, in private practice. You don't want to work with anybody. You just want to work on your own, for example. Private practice, there's just so much international opportunity, not-for-profit, school and educational settings, media within religious institutions, research centers. We're starting to see really people in psychology just represented across the gamut. I mean, now wherever I go, I see counselors, I see mental health providers working in very interesting settings, whereas before it was much more restrictive, like a decade ago. The faculty will be, I will be the program director. Dr. Wahid Gormez is a full professor joining us, taking quite a sacrifice actually, being so developed within his field and being a senior and authority within his own right to take this adventure, mashallah, and to go out on a limb and to come out here. And I know, I'll let him speak, of course, his shared excitement about a program like this. Dr. Omar Mahmoud will be joining us, inshallah, who's originally from California. I knew him from the United States. We shared a panel one time, at a conference in the United States. I never thought we'd be sharing a kind of a faculty at the same place. And he actually wrote up the whole scopes of practice for the field of psychology in Qatar, right? So Dr. Khalid Zamzami, he is a graduate of CIS, actually, in the Masters of Islamic Ethics. He also has, training in Islamic traditions from Azhar, as well as a psychiatrist and researcher, and he's done several fellowships, mashallah. And Dr. Venus Mahmoudi, who's at Columbia University, who is the head of our New York chapter of the organization that I run in the United States called Khalil Center, and she's going to join us from New York City, inshallah, to be part of this program. And then we have a bunch of adjuncts that are very exciting that we'll be adding, and then here are the requirements. Oh, yes, sorry.
I just want to add, Arabic is something that you can also do while taking other courses as well. So not necessarily that Arabic is a prerequisite for you to enter the program. Okay, so you can actually do while you are taking other courses as well if you don't have Arabic.
Can you hear me? Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, doctor. Thank you, Bayan. My name is Hamza Salat. I'm an admission specialist working with the enrollment team. So I'm going to talk briefly about the admission requirements for the new program, the MA in Counseling Psychology. So the applicants are required to have a bachelor's degree in the fields of psychology, counseling, social work, or a related field with a minimum GPA of 3 out of 4. Now I know some universities don't use this GPA system. From our side, we have the conversion tools, and we'll do the conversion from our side. And we will check if the GPA meets the minimum requirement. Another thing is that if the bachelor's study was not in mental health, degree in mental health or in mental health related fields, the student or the applicant should demonstrate that they have completed coursework in psychology. All applicants are required to have IELTS of a minimum of 6.5 or a TOEFL of a minimum of 79. If the applicant has studied his bachelor's degree or any degree he has done in English, he would be exempted from that requirement. And GRE general test exam is optional. So for the application requirements, during the application, the application is done online through our website. We'd require the transcripts for your bachelor's, showing all your grades and showing that you have graduated the program, the official TOEFL score or IELTS score, or proof from the university that you have studied in English, personal statement where you talk about yourself, your ambitions, why you're interested in that program, and what are your aspirations for the future. Identification documents, passport and QID, updated resume, and 2 recommendation letters, preferably to be academic, but it's fine if it's from a workplace. The deadline is 30th of June, so hopefully we see your applications very soon because we only have a little time left.
Then we should start now, right?
Yes, it's already open on the website.
You
It's
have
already
10 days,
available.
mashallah.
Um,
It's kind of
Is
the
it
story
on?
of this program.
Okay. Let me just talk about funding a bit before I pass it to Professor Wahdan. A couple of things before I talk about funding. I think the other unique thing about the program is that for your dissertation, you have an option whether you can actually write a thesis or you can do a research project. So that's another unique thing about the program. So thesis and academic research, but project means that you are engaged with a third party, with another institution. You develop a solutions which is much more on the practical nature. So that's another. And also, if you are thinking about doing PhD, because there's also a plan for us to offer a PhD in counseling psychology after we complete this MA. So if you're planning, if you have in mind to pursue your PhD, then ideally we would recommend you to do the thesis part so that you have a continuation towards a PhD. The last thing, which is probably maybe quite important as well about funding, I have to say this. Typically, our master's program is priced at 72,000 Qatari riyals for 36 credit hours. So another value thing about this program, because I'm a finance guy, I have to mention this. Although this program is 55 credit hours, we still decided to price it at 72,000. So this is maybe for the first, I'm not trying to entice you, but I just want to say that it's quite a good deal as well. And the point is, for students who are coming, especially residents and also Qatari residents or Qatari nationals, we will provide you 50% tuition fees. So at this point of time, our total allocation is about 10 students. So for the first top 10 candidates, you'll be extended tuition fee waivers, which is 50% of the fees. So you only have to pay another 50%. But for the rest, if you want to take more than 10 students, it depends on the budget availability. If you may not eligible for the scholarship, you have to pay the full 100%. So it depends on the rating of the admission committee. So who is the admission committee? The professors themselves. So they will interview you, they will evaluate you, and they will decide who will be the top 10 candidates for this program. But it doesn't mean that we're going to stop at 10. We can actually take up to 15 to 20 students for the first cohort. Depends on the demand and from you guys. We don't have that much of time because the deadline is 30th of June. You have to understand everything about this program is express. There's nothing normal about this program. I think Dr. Human can vouch for it. So you also are special because you'll be the first batch, and you will be, inshallah, will be the inaugural batch and will be the first cohort of graduating student for this program. So with that, I will probably pass it to Professor Wahdad. You know, maybe he want to like to say a few things before we take questions from you guys.
Assalamu alaikum. Well, I don't have much to say, to be honest. I think everything has been said. But I'm really delighted and also to attend the program. Actually, I'm here to teach what I know and to learn what I don't, because it's a new. There's lots of new stuff here for me as well. It's a shame that I didn't have a chance to take part in planning and organization of this program. So it was all Dr. Human, Dr. Iskandar, and others. So what I can add to the program is that maybe my expertise. I'm a child psychiatrist. I specialize in child and adolescent mental health. I did my training in the UK where I stayed for 12 years. And also I am an international accredited CBT therapist. I have trained more than 3,500 people in Turkey mainly, which is 160 hours of training. So I'm hoping to bring that into the program. And this is unique really because the problem in clinical psychology or counseling programs in Turkey and in Europe is that they don't have much chance to put what they learn into practice. So this will be the unique part of it. And we actually established a program like this in Istanbul at Ibn Khaldun University. It's fantastic. I think it's quite unique. Really, there isn't anything that can match that program there. And it's a combined PhD program that, you know, the MA and then continuation with is PhD. So I hope that it will be, inshallah, be quite useful and, you know, productive time for us all, inshallah. Ya Allah make it khair, inshallah.